Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Right? This new associate must not know her liturgical calendar very well, greeting us with an Easter greeting on this 7th Sunday after Easter. But yet, this is indeed our last Sunday of the Easter season. We are almost at that time where we celebrate the end of those great 50 days with the celebration of Pentecost next week. And sandwiched in between that great celebration of Easter and Pentecost, we have that lesser celebrated but significant nonetheless Feast of the Ascension 10 days before Pentecost. So that was celebrated this past Thursday. So in liminal time between Ascension and Pentecost, we find ourselves in this one last Sunday of the Easter season where Christ has now ascended up into heaven to be one with God. And we, for just a moment, are left without the advocate yet, and without God Emmanuel among us. So no wonder our collect of the day names that and prays to God for the coming of the Spirit. Do not leave us comfortless, but send us your Holy Spirit to strengthen us. Over these last 6 Sundays, we've heard various portions of John's Gospel where we've been reminded of the story of Jesus, God among us, from the beginning. We heard the recap of Jesus' entire ministry, if you will, starting from the calling of the disciples up through his time in Jerusalem at the Last Supper, the washing of the disciples' feet, and his commandment to love one another as I have loved you, his witness to the man who wished to be made well. That translates for us as God's wish for us to be whole. To what we hear today, which is actually the third portion of this great high priestly prayer from the 17th chapter of John's Gospel. This prayer takes us back to that in-between time after the Last Supper, but before the crucifixion, where Jesus prays to God for all the things. The first section, which we don't hear today, is the section in which Jesus prays to God for himself. And then he prays for his disciples. And then the third section of that high priestly prayer that we hear today, Jesus is praying for us. It might not be as easy to recognize those prayers as being for us, but indeed they are. In that tongue twister of the I and the you and the we and the one language, in these 6 verses of John's Gospel, what we hear is Jesus praying for the ones who will come to believe because of the words the disciples will speak. The ones who will be the church after the disciples are the ones in the world spreading that good news of the gospel. The ones who will be the church not just in that generation, but in these many generations forward that bring us right here on May 29th, 2022, to this place. To this place in which we remember that this God of love not only sacrificed himself, but then rose again and conquered death, that the God of love then ascended into heaven to be seated at the right hand of the Father, and that God of love will not leave us alone, will not leave us comfortless. We hear in that prayer that Jesus' desire for us to be one as he and the Father are one will mean that we are all called to be in relationship, and that relationship will be wrapped up in our belief in the God who in God's self is in relationship. The work that the disciples will do after Pentecost, that spreading the good news of love in the world, is that work of witnessing. Being a witness to God's love and God's call to relationship, even in the darkest corners of our human life together. The witness of believing in the good in the midst of the evil. The witness of believing in love conquering death, no matter what that death looks like, and no matter how hard that love is to live out. Jesus' prayer for us is that we will be one with one another and in relationship with one another as we go into the world to witness to that God of love living and moving among us and promising love and life for all people. As we live this liminal week, this time between the Ascension and Pentecost, my prayer for us is that we may be one in the sense that we may be united in that work of witness, but that we also be many, in that we as many individual members of Christ's body may go out into the world as witnesses to God in our own places and spaces. As we celebrate this beautiful Memorial Day weekend, and as we look forward to summer and the lengthening of days and the lessening of our schedule, may some of the free time that we have be time where we might wonder and then live into how we might be called to be witnesses in the world around us. Be witnesses to that love and that life that God says are open and available to each and every person. How will you be a witness in these coming days? How will you hold on to that Spirit which is coming to move among you and with you? And how will you glorify God in your witness, struggling against that evil and that darkness that all too often overcome us? I hope that you can find in yourself and in your life ways in which you make sure that love makes a way, that life makes a way, as witnesses of God's love and God's light in a world that needs light